Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. I'm Chris Carter. He's Ray Fittipaldo. We're your Steelers beat writers. And as always, you can find this show all week long on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. When you've been hurt on the job, you need to know who decides when you're better, who decides when your treatment's over, and who decides when your benefits are over. The answer might surprise you. It's the insurance company's doctors. If that doesn't make you feel good, it shouldn't, because you need someone who's on your side. If you want someone on your side, that's Edgar Snyder Associates. Call them today at 1-800-94-EDGAR. They'll fight for the workers' compensation right that you deserve. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Ray, you wrote about your risers and fallers after the preseason week two preseason game against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. There were some obvious ones out there, but I want to talk about risers and fallers since the start of training camp, where we thought this team was, or where we thought that these players were at the start of training camp until now. Official cut down day for the Steelers is or for the whole NFL is Tuesday, August 26th. So that's when they have to cut it down to a 53-man roster. Right now, there's about 90 players that they're looking at right now. We'll go over the risers, this segment, the fallers next segment. But whoever he is, if you want to make your own Steelers roster, you can do so by going to the post-gazette.com. On the front page, right under the top stories, you see a banner that says Post-Gazette's annual preseason tool. Create your own 2025 Steelers roster. It allows you to literally pick position by position who you want to keep and set your roster. Let us know who you pick. But Ray, let's talk about who do you think are some of the biggest risers for the Steelers that have caught your eye this throughout this whole process?
Yeah, I've got three, and I'll be interested, Chris, to see if we're on the same wavelength here. I'm going to go Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller, Yahya Black. And when we think about risers, right, it's kind of like guys who are maybe surprises, or maybe you weren't expecting it, the way we've seen it with these guys. So it tends to be guys who are maybe on that roster bubble, or guys like Roman Wilson who had a spot on the team, but their role was undefined. So for me, those are the three biggest names that come to mind. How about you?
I'm right with you on Roman Wilson. I think he has really shown up. And it's funny, he's not doing everything. He's not making one-handed Odell Beckham grabs. He's not, scoring touchdowns left and right. But in the last two games, he has made two really solid catches, a few of them in traffic. Some of them he's just getting wide open with his ability. The 42-yard ball that he caught from over Jamel Dean from Mason Rudolph. Jamel Dean gave him at least a 10, maybe 15-yard cushion before the play, and he still got behind him. That's that 4.39 40-yard dash speed that we saw from Roman Wilson coming out of college. And I think it's exciting for the Steelers to be able to say, hey, maybe we do have more threats at wide receiver than people gave us credit for. So Roman Wilson, definitely a big one. You and I, we've been both on the same page about Yahya Black since the start of training camp. That guy's just massive. And even though he's not like breaking up the stat sheet, you can see teams are having to double team him, and it's keeping guys clean. So I like that. But another guy I'll say, and this one's not as big of a jump, but it's more so because at the start of training camp, I thought they were going to have to go out and get somebody at this position. But I'm going to say Juan Thornhill, because I thought he's been very solid at the free safety role and then rotating around the secondary. I have not noticed him be in bad positions all throughout camp. I thought that was going to be a spot where they're just going to have to go sign a free safety. Right. I think that between him and Chuck Clark, Ray, and let me know if you differ in opinion here, I think they've got to put themselves – they don't got to sign anybody big. If they want to sign one more guy for depth, that could be the move there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Chuck Clark has been around the ball as well. So, he came, the first week of camp, and, maybe to provide some competition for Juan Thornhill after things got a little bit thin there with – trading away Minka Fitzpatrick. So, yeah, I'm with you. Thornhill is a guy where I still think there's a lot of question marks about him going into the season, but he's pretty much answered the bell here in the preseason, and that's all we can really grade him on right now, right? His practices, what he does in practice, and what he's done in the two preseason games. And as you mentioned, there haven't been a whole lot of screw-ups from his end. So I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part about this is that those guys are being brought in to kind of keep the lid on the defense. The biggest thing that they need to do in that situation, in my opinion, is they need to not let up the big plays. They don't have to make the interceptions. If they're there, make them. If they're time for the big hits, like we saw Juan Thornhill's big hit in the Jaguars preseason game, make them. Chuck Clark, and like you said, he's around the ball, not just in the passing game, but in the running game. He's flying up into holes and doing that. Do all those things. These guys can do the dirty work while the cornerbacks they've invested into, Jalen Ramsey, Joey Porter, Darius Slay, those are the guys I think that you're really interested to see. Can they play at the high level and be the turnover creators? Typically, I think in most of recent Pittsburgh sports history, I'd say at least the Tomlin era, it's been the safety position, whether that was Minkah Fitzpatrick or Troy Polamalu. Those were the guys that really made the plays. Cornerbacks had their moments, like Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson. There's Ike Taylor, was really good, but he wasn't a turnover creator as much. But this could be a unique year where it's that position that's the playmaker, and the safeties are the ones just sort of keeping the glue together to make sure that the defense doesn't fall apart on the back end.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for guys like Thornhill and Chuck Clark being hungry and being motivated. Chuck Clark, Chris, was basically out on the street. He didn't have a home, 3 weeks ago. The Steelers give him a chance. He comes in here and he does well. Juan Thornhill, one man's trash could be another man's treasure. Sent out of Cleveland packing, word out of there if you listen to their fan base and, some of the people who cover that football team, he was done. He wasn't a guy who was a starting caliber player in the NFL anymore. And, we don't know if he's going to be that guy yet for the Steelers, but sometimes guys just need to find, a different home, and they, a change of scenery can be good sometimes. So we'll see if Juan Thornhill does have anything less, but like you mentioned, at the very least, they have options now, because if Thornhill doesn't work out, or vice versa, you got a guy like Chuck Clark. So I do think the depth in the secondary, it's been tested a little bit with some injuries. Corey Trice and Jalen Ramsey was out for a while, but that's why you build depth. That's why you bring in guys like Brandon Echols to provide that depth. So I think that was an off-season one, and they went out and did it, and I think it served them well so far. Getting deeper, getting better in the secondary.
It certainly looks that way. I'll flip back to the offense real quick to talk about the wide receiver position because, you brought up Scotty Miller as well. I'll ask you this. Based off of what you've seen from Roman Wilson and Scotty Miller, with this hypothetical, if Calvin Austin comes back healthy in week 1 and looks like he's still the upward trending receiver that he had been, do the Steelers still need to go out and get a wide receiver 2, or do you think that they have enough ammunition in their offense to not need to make a big move?
If Calvin's healthy,
if he's healthy,
he could play a full load of snaps in game week 1.
Yes.
I will say no, they don't have to go out and make a move, but I don't know the answer to that question, Chris. So that's really
Good
tough
point.
for me to ponder that. It's encouraging what Roman Wilson has done. Scotty Miller too, but I just keep going back. Like with Scotty, he's played so well, but he's a guy who's had a hard time getting on the field and contributing the last couple of years, right? So it's like, okay, we know he can be a good depth guy, a 5 or a 6, but if Calvin Austin is injured, is he a 3 or a 4? I don't think so. That's putting a lot on a guy's plate who probably doesn't really fit that mold. So hopefully we'll find out this week what's really going on with Calvin Austin. I don't think he's going to play Thursday no matter what, but as we inch closer to the 26th, that's when they got to make their decisions about guys who go on IR and things along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The 26th, the 27th, the 28th, that's when all those moves get made. So we'll see what happens with the Steelers.
Certainly will. I know we talked a lot of playmakers here. And the one big guy we talked about was Yahya Black. But I'll say this on the offensive line, even though he's not a guy like fighting to make the team, he is a guy fighting to show that he's worth a future contract that'll be due in a couple years. That's Broderick Jones. I think he is a big riser from the start of training camp, because I remember those first couple weeks where, he, went in the non-padded practices and you could see Nick Herbig and TJ Watt and Alex Heisman just running around him. And people were like, wow, you look so bad. And I was like, guys, let the pads go on. Let's see how it works. And then he got hurt and then he didn't practice for a week. And then it was the night practice where he wore just shoulder pads and he still wasn't stopping Alex Heisman. People say, I don't know, man, he looks like a bust. But ever since he has come back from that injury, I think he's looked more than solid. Even on the looking back at the touchdown pass that Mason Rudolph threw in this Buccaneers game, he's up against Yahya Diaby, a respected young edge rusher on the Buccaneers defense, and he just straight up turns him inside and gives Mason Rudolph the space to roll left to buy time and eventually find Brandon Johnson for the touchdown. But then even after that, he sticks with him using his hands, using his feet. He's doing the basics, and I broke that down in last week's film study that we did. I think that's a very good rising point for the Steelers. If Broderick Jones is a good offensive tackle, it does a lot for this offense.
Yeah, and we've seen it like, a couple series against the Jaguars and then last night against the Bucs. I do kind of want to see it over the course of a game, and then 2 games, 4 games, 6 games. I do think he has to put it together over the course of an entire season. But yes, from a pass protection standpoint, we haven't seen those issues that we've seen in the past. And Chris, I think there's something to be said for comfort level. We got it out of Broderick. I think it was one of the last days of camp up in Latrobe. He just said, I'm more comfortable on the left side. And he was a good teammate. He was a good soldier. He played on the right side when asked. But I do think it's obvious now he's got a home on the left side. He feels comfortable there. And I think we're seeing that play out in his overall play.
Absolutely. We talked about the risers. Let's talk about the fallers and the other people that should be on watch. We'll talk about that next here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter, Ray Fittipaldo, stick with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.